The other guy gets
Who? The Chafetz Chaim?
Yeah.
He was where?
He was on the way back from Warsaw.
From Warsaw. So
where he lived. It was called Radun, was it? Radin.
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 That's right.
And some guy gets on the train.
Yeah.
And they start talking and this and that. And this guy's traveling third class, on a wooden bench. And the guy says to him, "Where are you going?" He says, "I'm going to Radin." He says, "Oh, Radin. I saw the Chafetz Chaim there."
Chafetz Chaim's there.
Yeah.
The Chafetz Chaim is there. So you're so lucky that you live in the same
Oh,
town.
and he said, "You're lucky, and he's such a good guy, and he's such a big tzaddik, and this and that." The Chafetz Chaim says,
I've heard.
"Not so special." So the guy freaks out and starts to beat him up. He says, "How dare you speak about the Chafetz Chaim like that? How dare you?" They get off the train, and there's this very big procession waiting for the Chafetz Chaim, and the banners and the flags, and the guy realizes who he is. He's beat up the Chafetz Chaim. Goes to him, he falls on his feet, and he begs for forgiveness, and this and that. Of course, I said, it's okay. But then he said, he put in his sefer, what's the sefer called? Schneersohn. You're not allowed to speak Lashon Hara about yourself. See? You're not allowed to say that you're a misanthrope. That's again.
So
what was the sikum of this sikha yesterday that we learned?
the sikum of the sikha is that Moshe Rabbeinu is the conduit to connect between the concealed world and the revealed world. And that's basically the idea.
What's the difference between
and that's why they aminu
Mashiach?
b'Hashem u'v'Moshe Avdo. So they believed in God, which means that they believed in the concealed world, and in Moshe's servant who brings the concealed world into the revealed world.
What's the difference between the shlichus of Moshe Rabbeinu and the shlichus of Mashiach?
Very good. I can't believe you asked that question, because now we're going to learn a piece by Levi Yitzchak, who is going to exactly talk about that. I have to open the window.
Oh, Baruch Hashem.
It's too hot.
Baruch Hashem. Okay.
Okay. B'kriyat Yam Suf.
Is that on?
Yeah.
Mordechai Brown, good morning.
Hi, Mom. בקריאת ים סוף היו 12 קריאות. So let's see.
Right.
So we're on page 7. We're learning from Yalkut Levi Yitzchak.
Okay.
And a shout out to who? To Rabbi, I can't remember his first name. David Dubov in Princeton, who writes this phenomenal work. יש שתי בחינות בתורה. There are two aspects in the Torah. Nistar the Torah, v'nigla the Torah. The concealed and the revealed. We call them Kabbalah and Nigla. That's what we call them. V'itchabutam yachad, and the fact that they join together, that is the revelation of the light of Chassidus. Because Chassidus takes both of them together. So we know, for instance, that in Chabad, the first Rebbe, his name is Schneer. Schneer means two lights, two different explanations. Either it means the concealed and the revealed, or it means Torah Shebechtav and Torah Sheba'al Peh. But in either case, what it comes to say is that he joined two things together. What does it mean? It means that when the Baal Shem Tov spoke, he didn't try to join them together. The Baal Shem Tov was like just a revelation of the concealed. The Magid was already a little bit of a connection between them, but it wasn't systematic. And what the Alter Rebbe, Reb Shneer Zalman of Liadi, did is that he systematically connected the two together and showed that Kabbalah and Chassidus, they are really one thing, except that it's two different ways of looking at the same thing. And that's the revelation of the light of Chassidus. שהוא מה שנסתר בתורה על סודות יותר עמוקים, יושגו בהפשטתן לשכל על דרך כמו השגה דניגלה דתורה. So he used a little bit a different explanation than I would have liked. But his explanation is that you should study the secrets of the Torah with the same type of mindset that you study the revealed Torah, Talmud and Halacha, because really it's the same seichel. You use the same mind, so that you can't say to somebody, look, this is not logical. It has to be logical. It has to, right? That's really how it's explained.
So you said you've got to learn it systematically?
Not just systematically, but systematically rationally.
Okay.
That's the main thing. מה שאין כן, קבלה אינה מושגת לשכל האנושי, כי רק בדרך קבלה ואמונה בלבד. if you were just studying Kabbalah without Chassidus, then it would be a completely different mindset. To study Kabbalah, you have to go into the mindset that requires faith. You have to believe that this is true. There's no rational explanation behind it. It's just that you have to accept it. It's a different state of mind. But the revelation of the light of Chassidus is higher than both Kabbalah and revealed tradition. Why? Because we have a principle that if something can mediate, can really connect two things together, it must be higher than both of them. Okay? Right. So you have to be higher. It's like the king who brings two ministers who are fighting together. Okay. Why can he bring them together? Because he's higher than both of them. There's different reasons why they would come together without that. But in this case, that's what it means.
Isn't the fact that Chassidus is bringing Kabbalah down into a language which is easy to understand prove that it's also higher because it's acceptable in the...
Right, it's acceptable in both.
Yeah.
Both the rational mindset of the revealed tradition will accept what's said because it makes sense. And the Kabbalah will also accept it because it explains the same teachings, okay? Just in a different way. Because it's higher than both of them, that's why it can connect the two. That the concealed itself will be understood in a revealed way. Haraz, the secrets. Raz. Like in Aramaic, but it's also a Hebrew word. In Tehillim in chapter 37, right? Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah, 37. So there's a pasuk. See, I can remember the two words. I can't remember the whole pasuk. Can't remember the whole pasuk. He says that you should shepherd faith. Right? This connects to what we talked about Moshe Rabbeinu being the shepherd of faith. What it means is to shepherd is always da'at, like Moshe Rabbeinu. Why? Because when you're shepherding something, the shepherd who's shepherding the flocks have no consciousness, they have no knowledge of the dangers or whatever. They're mindless.
Like a little child.
Yeah, they're mindless. So you shepherd them means that you give them your mindset.
You're telling them what to do.
Right. So that means that to shepherd somebody, you're basically giving them consciousness. You're giving them knowledge. So here, that's what it means, that faith itself, will be shepherded. So to shepherd faith means that you teach faith. You can actually teach it rationally. Ukmo, like it says, Vaya emunati techa, chokhmat v'da'at. Like we say about the emunati techa chosen yeshuot chokhmat v'da'at. So emunah, these 6 words, they correspond to the 6 darim, the 6 parts of Mishnah. What do they call them? 6 orders of Mishnah. She'aperushu, why does it come from this verse? Vaya emunati techa chosen yeshuot chokhma v'da'at. That literally would mean the faith of your times, emunati techa, chosen yeshuot, will be strong salvation, wisdom and knowledge. Chokhma v'da'at. She'aperushu she'emunat gufa, and for some reason he writes emunat. In the pasuk it says emunah, but he writes here emunat. I don't know why. Tiyeh b'bchinat chokhma v'da'at. That the in the pasuk it says emunati techa. Of course it says emunat, but it says chokhma v'da'at, and here it says chokhmat v'da'at. I don't know why. So that faith itself will become like wisdom and understanding, things that can be rationally explained. And again, it's not the explanation. You're not explaining the basis of faith rationally. It's not like I can prove to you that there is God. That's not the point, because that's not interesting really. What we're saying is that if in Kabbalah it says something, it's not just pulling it out of a hat. There's a rhyme and reason.
There's a basis for it.
There's a rhyme and reason for why it says so and so. וידוע שרז"ל דרשו פסוק זה על תורה במסכת שבת. It's known in Tractate Shabbos, in Daf Lamed Aleph, the sages learned this verse, והיה אמונת איתך, חוסן ישועות חוכמה ודעת, they learned about Torah. Meaning, והיינו, הבחינה the Torah מחברת שתי הבחינות יחדיו. So the wisdom and knowledge here is Torah that can bring faith and consciousness together. So the Chokhmah is the Torah, and it makes the Emunah Da'at. That's like Re'eh Emunah. It's like shepherding faith, bringing it into consciousness. ובזה יובן שלגילוי אור החסידות, שהוא הבחינה יותר גבוה, and through this we understand that the revelation of the light of Chassidus, which is higher than both Nigla and Kabbalah, התחברות שתי הבחינות יחד, connecting the two, היה גאולתו בי"ט כסלו, was redeemed, its day of salvation, that was saved from not appearing in the world, specifically with the Alter Rebbe, not with the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov didn't face anything like this. The Baal Shem Tov was never arrested and tried and whatever they wanted to kill him. He never went through that. But when the Alter Rebbe began to connect them, that became an issue. There was opposition from the negative parts of the world, that if you do this, then now everybody will be able to understand the secrets of the Torah, everybody will understand Mashiach and so on, and if we do that, oy vey. It happened on the Yutet.
I never really understood why it is oy vey.
Because the redemption will come, and they're not worthy of it. The light of Chassidus is the light of Mashiach.
But who says we're not worthy of Mashiach?
So there's always what do you call it? The guy who opposes you in a court, even if you're clean as a whistle. Right. The other what do you guys call them? A barrister. Yeah. The other barrister can always find a fault. You can always find fault in somebody's argument, in somebody's life, in somebody's conduct, and so on, if you're really looking to prosecute them. That's what these lawyers do. So there's a lawyer who says they're not worthy, even if they are worthy. Doesn't matter. You can always find why they're not. So he says this is why he was saved, the Alter Rebbe, and the light of Chassidus in this manner, the light of Chassidus of bringing the Nigla together with the Nister, bringing the concealed together with the revealed, was saved on the 19th of Kislev, Yutet Kislev. Why 19? Yutet Dafka kolel shtei abchinot. It connects two different aspects that we just learned about. The Yud Bet de Kriyat Hayam, 12 conduits, or 12 tribes, not just tribes, but pathways, routes that were opened in the Red Sea. When the Red Sea split, according to the Medrash, it was split into 12 different routes.
Tosfos and Gemara.
Tosfos also knows Medrash. Whether this happened this way, didn't happen this way, I wasn't there. I don't know.
Of course you were there.
I wasn't. I was in Mount El Sinai, but I don't remember what happened 42 days earlier.
Okay.
And then it says by Yeshayahu that we learned this yesterday. There's the pasuk that we should probably say the pasuk finally, since we've mentioned it yesterday and today, and I don't remember the pasuk by heart. So the pasuk is, and thankfully I have a translation here. Yud Aleph Vav. This is one of the most famous. It's the Haftarah of. We read this on the 7th day of Pesach. This is right the Haftarah here. The 8th day of Pesach. So I guess we in Eretz Yisrael we read it on the 7th. We read it on the 7th.
There's one Haftarah which is missed.
Right, but what they say here is the 8th is Oda Yom Benov La'amod. We don't read. So. And then it says, והיה ביום ההוא יוסיף עדני, שנית ידו לקנות את שאר עמו, אשר יישאר מאשור ממצרים, ומפטרוס, ומכוש, ומאלם, ומשנער, ומחמת, ומאיי הים, ונשא נס לגויים, ואסף נדחי ישראל, ונפוצות יהודה יקבץ, and so on and so on. והחרים השם את לשון ים מצרים, והניף ידו על הנהר בים רוחו, והיכהו לשבעה נחלים והדריך בנעלים. So I'll read it in English. It shall be on that day that the Lord will once again show his hand to acquire the remnant of his people who will have remained from Assyria, and from Egypt, and from Pathros, and from Cush, and from Elam, and from Shinar, and from Hamat, and from the islands of the sea. He will raise a banner for the nations and assemble the castaways of Israel, and he will gather in the dispersed ones of Judah from the four corners of the earth. And then he says, Hashem will dry up the gulf of the Sea of Egypt, and he will wave his hand over the Euphrates River. Okay? Here he says it's the Euphrates. With the power, we also saw that in the Prat. We saw that in the Maimer. So he will wave his hand over the river with the power of his breath. He will break it into 7 streams and lead the people across in dry shoes. There will be a road for the remnant of his people who remain from Assyria, and there was for Israel on the day it went up from the land of Egypt. So that's the verse in Isaiah. So the sea, the Red Sea, was split into 12 routes, and the future split will be into 7. This river, whatever this, obviously this is a more metaphoric than this.
It's logical that it's the Euphrates, because in Bereshit it says it was the most important river.
Yeah, it's the most important. Okay, so that's how he says that they will become 19, because 12 and 7 of the river and the ocean and the sea split into 12, the river will be split into 7, that's 19 together. And then he says, Gimel Yachad, 3 together. What does he mean by 3 together? Meaning the Nigle of Torah, the revealed tradition, the Kabbalah, and Chassidus. All 3 will be together as one. That's it. Very nice. So that's what he wrote in a letter to the Rebbe.
Who wrote this?
Levi Yitzchak. The Rebbe's father wrote to him in a letter. Yeah. This is from his letters. So the Rebbe in the Sikha.
Where was the Rebbe then? In Paris?
Yes. Most of the letters are when he was in Paris. There's a few that when he was in Latvia. Not very many. Anyway.
How do we get hold of these letters? The Rebbe kept them and published them?
Okay. They're in a book.
No, the Rebbe published the letters.
Okay, of course.
Private letters. Okay. He published everything, or just the
There are a lot of very, very private things there. So I don't know if he did. Obviously, he decided what he wanted to publish. There's a lot of private things there. He talks about their miscarriages. Not in so many words, but not openly, but in so many words. He talks about the fact that the Rebbe was fasting a lot. The Rebbe was fasting because of the miscarriages, and he tried to turn the decision in the heavens. And he wrote to him that it's not the way to do it, and we don't do it this way, and so on. He told him to add in learning Torah. It's very interesting. The Rebbe published everything. I've never seen that. There's never like a. There might be, but you can't tell if he dropped anything out. He didn't do what Levin does in the library. He puts two dots in to tell you at least that he dropped something. But now I think he stopped because it backfired on him a few times. Anyway, so the Rebbe in the Sikha, he addressed this what his father wrote here, and he writes like this.
This is now the Rebbe?
Now it's the Rebbe. Even though the main revelation of the secrets of Torah will be by the Mashiach in the future, as it says, "Yishakeni min shikot piu," and to kiss me with the kisses of his mouth, which is how Shlomo HaMelech, how Solomon describes the connection between the bride and the groom in the Song of Songs. So it's explained in Kabbalah that Yishakeni, or Chazal say this, sorry. Chazal say that, Rashi there even says it, that kissing means handing over the pnimius, okay, as opposed to hugging, which is only the external. So even though the full kiss will be only in the time of Mashiach, there's at least the breath already that was revealed by Rashbi, by Rav Shimon Bar Yochai. And he says here, Re'eh Kohelet Rabbah, so Perek Yudalef, I didn't see it, and it will be interesting to see what Kohelet Rabbah says there. ובדוגמת מה שגם לפני מתן תורה, אצל האבות היה לימוד התורה באופן של ריחות. In the same way that even before the Torah was given at Mount Sinai, the patriarchs had parts of the Torah. And what does it mean that they had parts of the Torah? They kept some of the mitzvos, but it was called smells. So vapor, when you say that from the mouth there's a kiss, but there's also just the breath, the vapor that comes out. In the same way, you can call it the smell. So the smell of a mitzvah is like saying that you did the mitzvah, but you only left the smell. And smell, evaporates.
It says in the Shulchan Aruch, reach lo mitzvah.
Good. No, it's a whole question. האם ריח כעיקר in an oven.
Right. So it's reach lo mitzvah.
Good.
Also before.
So at least we could.
Ta'aruvas.
Okay. So at least the question is not a question, but the idea is that what Rashbi revealed in the Zohar is already the breadth of the secrets of the Torah. At least that much. ועל פי זה יש לבאר מה שכתב בליקוטי לוי יצחק, and according to this we'll now explain what my father wrote, שגילוי החסידות שבי"ט כסלו הוא גבוה יותר מגילוי פנימיות התורה. And now you can understand why he writes, and everybody understands, that Chassidus is higher than Pnimis Torah as it was revealed by Rashbi, by the Zohar. שתתגלה על ידי משיח צדקנו, which will be revealed by the Mashiach. What is he saying here? Is he saying that what I always understood, the way I was taught, was that Chassidus is the Torah of Mashiach.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like a preview, like the Zohar. The Zohar is just a preview. As deep as it is, maybe it contains everything, but the way we understand it is just a preview. But Chassidus is already the revelation itself. So it's a little confusing here how it's written. We'll see. I have to see in a moment. In any case, ולכן כהקדמה לזה היה העלם גדול ביותר. And that's why before Chassidus could be revealed, there had to be a very strong העלם. And העלם is like a concealment, but he's referring to the cherem, to the attempt to stop Chassidus, and to stop it from being revealed. דלתורת הנגלה היה מקודם קריאת ים סוף שנקרא ל-12 קראים. Because to reveal, we talked about that splitting the oceans was like splitting the heavens at the giving of the Torah. So when the Torah was given, the heaven split, that was like that it needed a prerequisite was that the sea should be split into 12. And the sea being split into 12, that allowed the nigla of Torah to be revealed. And that from Ma'amad Har Sinai, from the giving of the Torah of Mount Sinai, what we mostly got was the revealed Torah, right? From that moment on, the revealed Torah began to sprout, began to increase. וגילוי אור, ונסתר בתורה של ידי משיח צדקנו, יהיה מקודם קריאת הנהר לשבעה נחלים. And before the Torah of Mashiach is revealed, the river will be split into 7. Again, it's obviously a metaphor. There's no afraid it's not going to be split into 7. If it is, it's not related. It's related maybe in the sense that it sort of connects to it. וגילוי אור החסידות שלמעלה משניהם היה גאולה בי"ט כסלו שכולל שתי הבחינות י"ב וז'. And the revelation of the Chassidus, which is higher than both, was done on the Yud Tet of Kislev, the bringing together of the 12 and the 7. Now this presents a question, a lot of problems. Aleph, איך אפשר לומר חיבור שתי הבחינות י"ב וז' גילוי תורת החסידות בי"ט כסלו קודם שתהיה הבקיעה לז' עצמה? How can you say that the 19, which is the connecting the 12 and the 7, connecting the nigla and the Torah of Mashiach, which is 7. It's very interesting. What did he say here? He said here that before I understood that the 7 was talking about Kabbalah. That's how you understood. That's how I understood in what Levi Yitzchak said. He says, no, you can't understand it that way. He's saying that the 7, because from Isaiah, it's the splitting of the river before the revelation of the Torah of Mashiach. So how can you say that Chassidus, which is before the Torah of Mashiach, already contains the 12 and the 7? Because the 7 hasn't happened yet. The river has not yet been split into 7. I always understood that the river already was split. but here he says, how can it be? He says, it'll only happen in the future. The split of the river, whatever it is, it's a metaphor for. There's a lot of, in Likutei Torah, there's a whole string of Maimarim to explain that verse of splitting the river into 7. So that's the first question. How can it happen before? So that's the question that I thought of. That there was Nister before the Mashiach will reveal the Pnimius of the Torah. So why don't you say that? So how was that? It's accepted. It's just as we explained, that even what Rashbi wrote, even the Kabbalah, is already a certain revelation of the splitting of the river into 7. That aspect of the concealed tradition, which was already revealed by Rashbi, was revealed by all the Mekubalim over the generations, is already predicated on the splitting of the river into 7. And from that we understand that the way I understood it, that the split into 7 has already occurred. This is a big question it raises. So what's this 12 and 7 already? So the first time the 12 and 7 appear in a Jewish context that I'm aware of is in Sefer Yetzirah. And Sefer Yetzirah divides the letters into 12, 7, and 3. And that's why he brought here at the end 3 together. He said 12, 7, and 3. Remember, in Levi Yitzchak's writing, in his letter, he wrote the 12, which is the splitting of the sea, with the 3, with the 7, which is the splitting of the river, and all 3 together. What are all 3 together? Where did you get the 3 suddenly? There were 2. It's also Chassidus. But the reason he's saying this, and it's interesting, I didn't see this in the, I didn't see this in his notes. He missed this. But what he's referring to is the Sefer Yetzirah. In Sefer Yetzirah, the letters are divided into 12, 7, and 3. 12 simple letters, 7 double letters, and 3 mother letters, they're called. Imota Lashon. So 3 Emish, Aleph Mem Shin. The 7 doubles are Beged Kafrat. Right? The ones that we can either say with a dagesh or without a dagesh. So we say Bet and Vet. Gimel, we don't know exactly how to say the 2. Daled, we don't know how to say. So they claim they do. Kaf and Chaf. Pei and Fei. Reish, we also, in Arabic there is. In Arabic they still have 2 different reishes. One sounds like an ayin, basically. It's basically the difference between R, the Hebrew R, and the English R. The English R is It's like there's no rolling of the letter. In Hebrew there's reish, so you hear the rolling. That's how it is in Arabic. So the Arabs don't have a problem saying the Americanized or English or British R, which doesn't roll like the Hebrew one. And Taf and Saf, which we think that's how it's said, but that's the tradition. So these are the 7 double letters and the 12 simple letters, which are whatever is left, but they're the easy way to remember them. There's no easy way. The first 6 are consecutive. Hey Vav Zayin Chet Tet Yud. That's easy. Hey Vav Zayin Chet Tet Yud. That's his first. Then you have to start skipping. So you have Lamed, and then you have Nun and Samech and Ayin and Tzadik and Shin. No, Shin is one of the Emish. That's it. Tzadik's the last. No, Tzadik is Shvat. So one more. Kuf. Kuf is Adar. I remember them by the months. So that's what he meant. So what is he saying here? That this is all related to the letters of the Aleph base. First of all, from this you understand that the Gimel at the end maybe is another level after that. He's saying that first, the 12 were revealed. The 12 simple letters. Meaning, Nigla is like understanding things literally. The 12 simple letters, they don't have two forms. What does it mean that there are 7 double letters? It means that when you read it in the Sefer Torah, you have to know
which way to pronounce it.
Which way? Because in the Sefer Torah, there's no sign. The sign was invented apparently in the 10th century. The sign to put a dot in the middle, and that will be what will differentiate for you. That's called the Yeridat Dorot, because it's called the lessening of the generations. Why? Because before that, everybody knew. But then people started forgetting. And there were arguments in shul. So you have to, still, Sefer Torah, you're not allowed to add this. But they started writing codexes that had the most famous one being the Aleppo Codex, right? The whole Bible, and there they wrote these symbols. So when you have double, then there's something hidden, because it's concealed dimension that you don't know. You have to know. You have to know beforehand, or you have to know that there's something hiding behind here. But the simple letters are just literal. It's just the way that they are. So all the geulot are related to something that in some way has to be double. Okay, there has to be two sides to it, and it's very confusing. The geula, from what it's saying, is that the geula, the redemption from Egypt, was very literal. It was very clear. We're in Egypt, now you're outside of Egypt. So that's cutting the sea into 12 different roots. The number 12 is what's important, not what the roots were. Okay? Again, this is all there's a whole name for it. I used to know. It's a trope. It's called in English. It's something that repeats all the time. So the trope is the 12, and it's 12 tribes. So of course you say that every tribe went in a route. I don't know what actually happened. It's not the point. The point is that it was very literal. That when you and in fact it was so literal that when they emerged from the sea, according to the Medrash, what's the Medrash trying to say? It's against the literal meaning, but it's more literal. They ended up on the same bank where they started. What am I trying to say? That you were freed from the Egyptians. That the splitting of the Red Sea is not to split.
Get rid of the Egyptians.
It's really to get rid of the limits that you had until now. You can't leave Egypt. Now you can. Now you're free. But
they got out of Egypt. Now you have to get Egypt out of Egypt.
That's a different one. But when you're talking about this redemption, the revelation of the Torah Mashiach, you're talking about the double letters. There's always some kind of unclarity about the situation. You always feel like it's not clear. Is it this? Am I redeemed? Am I not redeemed? You don't know which one. You have to understand the inner meaning of things in order to understand what's going on, in order to interpret it properly. It won't be as literal. It won't be in the end, in the end, even the body will understand that it was redeemed. But during the process of redemption, like in the Red Sea, something that clear is not going to happen. It's going to be like the splitting of the river into seven parts, like the 7 double letters. And you'll have to have an inner tradition in order to understand what you're seeing. Okay? So that's basically what he's
So where
bringing.
does Rabbi Dubov come into this?
He's the one who's doing this, who's annotating this. He's selecting the pieces for each parsha, and he's annotating it. And the hard work is the annotation. But again, he doesn't bring everything. Probably knows, but
You wrote to him personally?
not yet. I will. B'ezrat Hashem.